Now that you understand how to multiply negatives, you're ready to divide with them. And there's two things that you can do here: either divide by a negative number or start with a negative number and then perform division with either a positive or a negative. Now, the way I like to think of it is take it right back to a times tables fact that you know like the back of your hand. Something like 3 fours are 12. Now, in this example, the 3 and the 4 are factors of 12, aren't they? So that means that if I have one times tables fact, I can actually build two division problems that are sort of the equivalent. I can start with my 12 and I can divide by one factor, and no matter which factor I divide by, I always get the other one, right? So when you're thinking about what happens when you divide, remember that it's these two numbers here that multiply together to make this one. So then you can think through what you already know about multiplication. Now, you've seen that if you're multiplying two numbers and one of them is positive and one of them is negative, the answer will be negative. So if you're starting with a negative number, this is like our 12, isn't it? Then we can do two things. If we're dividing by a negative, then the answer must be positive, because after all, these two numbers must have multiplied together to make this one. And it could only have been negative if one of them was. So if this one was, this one can't be. Or if we're dividing a negative by a positive number, we can reason that these two numbers must multiply together to make this one. So if this one's negative, one of these had to be negative. So if this one wasn't, then obviously this one must have been. The other fact that we've learnt is that two negative numbers multiply together to make a positive number. So if you're starting with a positive number in your division and you're dividing by a negative, it makes sense that you'll get a negative number, because you should think through the fact that these two numbers need to multiply together to make this one. And if one of them was negative, the other one must have been as well, because if you had one of each here, this would have been a negative number, and it's not. So thinking through your facts with your multiplication makes it the simplest way, I think, to understand the division rules. So now let's have a look at how it works here with a few examples where we've got the types mixed up. If we've got negative 27 divided by 3, then we've got to be thinking, okay, something times 3 makes negative 27. Well, the 3 isn't negative, but the negative 27 is. So the answer must have been as well. Now, I know that 9 threes are 27, so I need minus 9. And just double check when you get to the end. Is negative 9 times 3 negative 27? Yeah, so you've got it right. 27 divided by negative 3. Well, something times negative 3 makes positive 27. Well, I know a negative times a negative makes a positive, so this must be also negative 9. And the last one, we've got a negative divided by a negative. So that means if the solution to my multiplication problem was negative, one of the two things I multiplied by had to be negative. So if this one was, then this one wasn't. And again, 3 9s are 27, so I can see that I've got this situation. Now, another thing that you can do to think this through is you can look at any of these situations as a fraction, because of course we can write 12 divided by 3 like this and 12 divided by 4 like that. Now, if you write your problem that way, this one becomes minus 27 over 3. Now, I know that 27 divided by 3 is 9, so see how the negative is just going to come along for the ride in the answer and stay there. It's negative 9. And to me, that's an even easier way to do it. This one, we've got 27 over negative 3. And again, 27 over 3 is 9. There's a negative in one of the answers. It will just come along, in one of the parts of the question. It'll come along for the ride. And in this last one, if we write negative 27 over negative 3 like this, you can see that the negatives effectively cancel out. And that's because here we can reason that we can multiply the top and the bottom of the fraction by negative 1. And that just allows us to lose that one, and we end up just with an answer of 9. And to me, that method actually makes a lot more sense, and you're a lot less likely to mess up by writing it that way.